Second Book of Kings, Elijah and King Ahaziah. Chapter 1. After the death of Ahab, Moab rebelled against Israel. In Samaria, King Ahaziah fell through the window from the upper room of his house and was badly injured. So he sent messengers to consult Beelzebub, the god of Ekron. Ask him whether I shall survive this accident. Then an angel of the Lord said to Elijah the Tishbite, Arise, go up to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria. You will say to them, Why have you come to consult Beelzebub, the god of Ekron? Is it because there is no God in Israel? Now the Lord himself gives you this answer. You shall not rise again from the bed where you are lying, but shall die there. So Elijah went. Then the messengers returned to Ahaziah, who asked, How is it that you have returned? They answered, A man met us on the way, and he said to us, Return to the king who sent you, and say to him in the name of the Lord, Why do you send men to consult Beelzebub, the god of Ekron? Is there no God in Israel? Because of this, you shall not rise again from the bed where you are lying, but shall surely die. The king asked them, What was the appearance of the man who met you on the way and told you this? They answered him, The man wore a mantle of fur with a leather belt around his waist. The king then said, He is Elijah the Tishbite. Ahaziah was sent to Elijah, a captain of 50, who went up with his 50 men. Elijah was seated at the top of the mountain. The captain said to him, Man of God, the king commands you to come down. Elijah answered the captain, If I am a man of God, may fire come down from heaven and devour you and your men. Fire came down from heaven and devoured him with his 50 men. The king again sent to him another captain of 50, and with his 50 men who went up and said to him, Man of God, the king says that you are to come down at once. Elijah answered, If I am a man of God, may fire come down from heaven and devour you and your men. Fire came down from heaven and devoured them all. The king sent a third captain with his 50 men. This third one went up, and as he came, he fell on his knees before Elijah and said to him, Man of God, I beg you, let my life and the lives of these 50 men, your servants, count for something in your sight. Already fire has come down from heaven twice and devoured the 2 captains with their men. So now do spare my life. Then the angel of the Lord said to Elijah, Go down with him and do not be afraid. So he stood up and went down with him to the king, and Elijah said to the king, Listen to this word of the Lord. Because you sent your messengers to consult Beelzebub, the god of Ekron, you shall not rise again from the bed on which you lie, but shall surely die. Ahaziah died according to what the Lord had said through the mouth of Elijah, and since he had no son, his brother Jehoram reigned in his place in the 2nd year of Jehoram, son of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah. Everything referring to Ahaziah and his deeds are written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. 2 Kings chapter 2. Elijah taken up to heaven. When the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha sent out from Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, Please stay here, for the Lord is sending me to Bethel. Elisha said, I swear by the Lord and by your life that I will never leave you. So they went down to Bethel together. The fellow prophets in Bethel went out to Elisha and said to him, Do you not know that today the Lord will take your master away from you? He answered, Yes, I know it, so be quiet. Elijah said to Elisha, Please stay here, for the Lord is sending me to Jericho. Elisha answered, I swear by the Lord and by your life that I will never leave you. So they went on to Jericho. The fellow prophets in Jericho approached Elisha and said to him, "Do you not know that today the Lord will take your master away?" Elisha answered, "Yes, I know it, so be quiet." Elijah said once more to Elisha, "Please stay here, for the Lord is sending me to the Jordan." But Elisha answered, "I swear by the Lord and by your life that I will never leave you." And so they went on their way. 50 fellow prophets of Jericho followed them and stood at some distance away. As both Elijah and Elisha stood by the Jordan, Elijah took his mantle, rolled it, and struck the water with it. The water parted to both sides, and they crossed over on dry ground. After they had crossed, Elijah said to Elisha, "What shall I do for you before I am taken away from you?" "Ask me," Elisha said. "Grant that I may inherit a double share of your spirit." Elijah answered, "Your request is a difficult one. Yet, if you see me while I am being taken away from you, then you shall have it. If not, you shall not have it." As they were walking along, talking on the way, a chariot of fire with horses of fire stood between them, and Elijah was taken up to heaven in a whirlwind. Elisha saw and cried out, my father, chariots of Israel and its charioteers." When Elisha lost sight of him, he took hold of his own clothes and tore them. He then picked up the mantle which had fallen from Elijah and returned to the banks of the Jordan. There he struck the water with the mantle, saying, "Where is the Lord, the God of Elijah?" When he struck the water, it parted to the right and to the left. Elisha crossed over. The fellow prophets of Jericho saw him at a distance and said, "The spirit of Elijah rests upon Elisha." And as they came to him, they bowed to the ground before him, saying, "There are 50 valiant men here with us. Let them go in search of Elijah, for it may be that the Spirit of the Lord has left him in some mountain or valley." Elisha replied, "Do not send anyone." But they insisted so much that Elisha let them go. They sent 50 men who searched for 3 days, but did not find him. Then they returned to Elisha, who stayed in Jericho. He commented, "Did I not tell you not to go?" 2 miracles of Elisha. The men of the city said to Elisha, "The location of this city is good as my Lord can see it, but the water is bad, and so the land is unproductive." He said to them, "Bring me a new pot with salt in it." When they brought it to him, Elisha went to the fountain and threw salt in it, saying, "This is what the Lord says, I have healed this water. Never more will it cause death or sickness." And the water has remained wholesome to this day, just as Elisha had said. From there he went up to Bethel. He was on his way when some youths came out from the city and made fun of him, saying, "Go up, bald head, go up, bald head." Elisha turned around, looked at them, and cursed them in the name of the Lord. At once 2 she-bears came out of the forest and killed 42 of them. From there Elisha set out for Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Samaria. Psalm 144, Prayers for Victory in War. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and my fingers for battle. My loving God, my fortress, my protector and deliverer, my shield where I take refuge, who conquer nations and subjects them to my rule. O Lord, what is man that you should be mindful of him, a mere mortal that you should take care for him? He is a mere puff of breath, his days pass like a shadow on earth. Bend your heavens, O Lord, and come down, touch the mountains and make them smoke. Flash forth lightning and rout the foe, shoot your arrows and scatter them. From above reach down and draw me out of the deep waters, from the hands of foreigners whose mouths speak falsehood, whose words are full of deceit. I will sing a new song to you, O God. I will make music on the 10-string harp. To you who give victory to kings and deliver David your servant. Rescue me from the evil sword and from the hands of foreigners, whose mouths speak falsehood, whose words are full of deceit. May our sons be like plants well nurtured and full grown, and our daughters like pillars that adorn the corners of the temple. May our barns be full with every kind of provision. May our sheep increase by thousands, by tens of thousands in our pastures. May our cattle be strong and fruitful, and may there be an end to raids and exile, to cries of distress in our streets. Happy are the people so blessed, happy the people whose God is the Lord. John chapter 11, verse 30 to 57. Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. The Jews who were with him in the house, consoling her, when they saw her get up and go out, followed her, thinking she was going to the tomb to weep. Mary, when she came to the place where Jesus was and saw him, fell at his feet and said, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews also saw, who had come with her also weeping, he was moved in the depths of his spirit and troubled. Then he asked, Where have you laid him? They answered, Lord, come and see. And Jesus wept. The Jews said, See how he loved him. But some of them said, If he could open the eyes of the blind man, could he not have kept this man from dying? Jesus was deeply moved again and came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across it. Jesus ordered, Take the stone away. Martha and the dead man's sister said to him, Lord, by now there will be a stench, for this is the 4th day since he died. Jesus replied, Have I not told you that if you believe you will see the glory of God? So they removed the stone. Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you, for you have heard me. I know that you always hear me, but I speak for the sake of the people standing around me, that they may believe that it was you that sent me. When Jesus had said this, he cried out in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped in a cloth. So Jesus said to them, Untie him and let him go. The plot to kill Jesus. Many of the Jews who had come to visit Mary believed in Jesus when they saw what he did. But some of them went to the Pharisees and told them what Jesus had done. Then the chief priests and the Pharisees called a meeting of the Sanhedrin. They said, What are we going to do? This man is performing many miraculous signs. If we let him go on like this, all the people will believe in him, and as a result of this, the Romans will come and destroy our holy place and our nation. One of them, Caiaphas, who was high priest that year, spoke up. You know nothing at all, nor do you see clearly what you need. It is better to have one man die for the people than to let the whole nation be destroyed. In saying this, Caiaphas did not speak for himself, but being high priest that year, he foretold as a prophet that Jesus would die for the Jewish nation, and not for that nation only, but also to gather into one the scattered children of God. So from that day on, they were determined to put him to death. Because of this, Jesus no longer moved about freely among the Jews. He withdrew instead to the country near the wilderness and stayed with his disciples in a village called Ephraim. The Passover of the Jews was at hand, and people from everywhere were coming to Jerusalem to purify themselves before the Passover. They kept looking for Jesus, and as they stood in the temple, they asked one another, What do you think? Will he come to the festival? Meanwhile, the chief priests and the Pharisees had given orders that anyone who knew where he was should let them know, so that they could arrest him.